In all seriousness, though, I heard the Indiana question and was wondering if you guys would field a Boston College question for a fan who has made it a habit of expecting mediocrity, but hoping for the best, upset Clemson, contend for the Atlantic in the season ranked. What are your thoughts on the future of BC football? Their non-conference schedule always seems manageable, although they did lose to Kansas on a Friday night at home recently. But from a recruiting perspective, combined with the ACC Atlantic schedule, what should I expect? And then he goes the extra mile here, Barton. He says, for your convenience, here is our non-conference schedule and 24/7 corresponding recruiting rank of those opponents for the next few years. So he says 2020, they get Ohio at home, at Kansas, Purdue, Holy Cross. 2021, they go to UMass, at Temple, host Missouri, and a TBD. 2022, Rutgers, Maine, at UConn, TBD. And 2023, NIU, Holy Cross, at Army, and UConn. So I'm going to Google one thing real quick here while you tackle the first part of that question about a Georgia pod or a Dave Clawson pod. I got a feeling that's a Cover 3 reference.
Well, yeah. Since the Cover 3 pod has morphed into a Georgia pod, maybe we should make this one a Florida pod. I know your old Florida State brethren, from the Nolecast would appreciate that. Or I got from a counterculture perspective. Dave Clawson is no one respects Dave Clawson more than the Cover 3 pod. Maybe we need to adopt like a Neil Brown or somebody. West Virginia, a little off the beaten path, built up Troy. I know you just did an interview with them for Social Distance. I just wrote a story about how good how impressed I am with their recruiting. So, hey, Jeff Hatley's not a bad candidate too, but we're definitely fans of finding a guy that can do a lot with a little. And Neil Brown seems like he's got a little Dave Clawson in him for that, in that regard.
For those who don't know, of course, Jeff Hafley, former defensive coordinator at Ohio State, and takes over at Boston College this year as their first-year head coach. Kind of took over very late in the recruiting process. So one of these guys who we would probably identify as a true, year zero type coach. So ACC-wise, right? One of the things I like to kind of do when I'm evaluating a program, I look at it and I say, okay, if everybody is operating at relative peak efficiency, okay, so like everybody's got their stuff together, everybody's trying hard, nobody's on weird probation or anything like that, what games are you going to be favored over, assuming you're doing your best and everybody else is doing their best? Are you going to be favored over Clemson? No. Florida State? No. Louisville? Probably not. NC State? Probably not. I think NC State's highs have been higher than some of Boston College's highs, but we're kind of getting a little more into the conversation there. We always ID NC State as a team or a program that should be a little bit better, but they never are. So there may be some systemic things holding them back that maybe like an A&M. It's like, why aren't they better? Like maybe there's some stuff that as analysts we just don't know. Syracuse? Yeah, I think Boston College can be as good or better than Syracuse if they're both trying their best. Wake Forest? Certainly. I think I just covered all the teams there in the division. Their annual crossover game, I think, is Virginia Tech, I believe, because it's one of those old Big East rivalries. They had a weird thing going, and this was basically the very tail end of like the Bobby Bowden era and the very beginning of sort of the Jimbo era there under Tom O'Brien, where like the rest of the ACC, especially Atlantic, was terrible. It's what spawned the ACC Wheel of Destiny on College Game Day, or the college whatever that wrap up show in the evening is. They went 9-3, 10-3, 11-3, 9-5, 9-3 from 04 to 08. And back then, I wasn't covering nationally as much, and I said, like, this is great for them. They're busting out. But here's the thing. They don't really control their own destiny. If the other programs in that division get their stuff together, there's really not a whole lot BC can do to maintain this level of success. And indeed, at that time, Clemson and Florida State were absolute, shows, right? I mean, they didn't have their stuff together. NC State was kind of up and down. Wake Forest won that division one year and, actually went to the Orange Bowl. So I think at Boston College, I don't want it to sound like a hater because I don't think making a bowl is their ceiling. But I do think in a year in which you make a bowl at Boston College, it should be considered a success. Honestly, that's a pretty good thing there. The recruiting base is not great. They do have a difficult schedule relative to their ability to get talent within the league, even though the ACC is not killer. That 2022 year looks like a year they can make a run, though. Rutgers, Maine, at UConn, and TBD. As long as that TBD is not like Alabama or something, maybe they could win 8-9.
So here's my question with BC, though. Like, Steve Addazio was basically a perennial 6 or 7 win coach. He was just like a
7-win Steve.
Yeah, they were forever going to be a 7-win team. And so I guess the question then is, like, how do you view like the caretaking of Steve Addazio within that program? Like, do you view Steve Addazio as someone that just sort of hits par with them? Is he hitting bogeys with them, or is he hitting, is he doing better than BC should be doing? I would probably say Steve Addazio is like, he's hitting par. Meaning, like, if there's a really good coach that comes in, if Jeff Hafley is a really good coach, then they can get 3 to 4 non-conference wins a year. They can get, I don't know, they could get 4 to 5 consistent conference wins a year. I mean, it's not like the ACC is like bubbling over with teams that look like they're like poised to take the next step. So, can BC get to where they are consistently going 8-4 with a chance for the occasional 9-3 or 10-2 cycle up? I mean, that's the hope. That's like the best case scenario probably. And I'm never like, if they recruit well, I think they'll be coached well. It'll be interesting. I mean, I think they've got that capability in them.
I don't totally disagree. I love your analogy of par. Like, to me, Steve Addazio at BC was that professional golfer who knows he doesn't have what it takes to win the tournament, right? But he's trying to make a living. He's not pin hunting, right? He's just trying to hit for the middle of the green, trying to 2-putt, take his par, get on to the next hole, make cuts, stay alive, keep his tour card, get a couple top 20, top 30 type finishes. Like that. That's kind of what Addazio was at BC. I will note that I think, yes, they are capable of having a better coach than Addazio, who I don't think is a great coach at all, right? And I think they're capable of leveling up maybe by a win per season. The 9-3 range as an expectation to me is too high. I think 8-4, 7-5 can be done if you couple it with the right kind of schedule. And I will say recently, I don't know that Boston College has done that as well for them. Last year, they had a game at Notre Dame, and they got blown out 40-7, right? The prior year, who did they play? UMass, Holy Cross. They went to Purdue and got blitzed, and they played a pretty damn good Temple team and only beat them by 10, right? That's a little more reasonable to me. The prior year, again, they got Notre Dame. Now, this ACC scheduling arrangement with Notre Dame is something they really can't control. But in years where you play Notre Dame, if you're Boston College, you need to add another loss to your expectation, because for the most part, unless something happens to Brian Kelly, like, you're probably going to lose that game. They're going to out-recruit you by enough margin that you're not going to beat them, typically. They've also played, looking at some other stuff here, 2016 was actually not that bad. They had that game against USC where they actually won, but again, from a scheduling policy standpoint, probably not the best idea. If you're BC and you want to try to challenge for 8-4, 9-3, and you want to kind of sneak into this back half of the top 25, because we know a lot of these writers really don't pay attention to the metrics. They just look at the win and loss record, especially when it comes down to the bottom, maybe third of that top 25. If you want to threaten to be in that thing, schedule yourself some wins in the non-conference. Pay up for those gimme games.
Tell me if you agree with this. I think BC has a higher ceiling than Wake Forest.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Wake Forest is like this is a really probably strong period with Wake, and they're up to eight wins 2 of the last 3 years. I think BC could get to that, and then can it get through that next step of getting to like 8 wins is the standard. 9 wins is the good year. That's a tough step to take.